Good morning, everybody. Maggie, if you don't mind to start with a short introduction.
Oh, good morning. I'm Maggie Ellsworth. I live in Wellsville, New York. Probably nobody's ever heard of it. I'm about 2 hours south of Niagara Falls. We're huge Buffalo Bills fans. I joined the group. I'm BRCA1. I found out when I was 42, and when I went to the genetic counselor, she gave me all my results, and I had a 90% chance of triple negative breast cancer before 45 and an 80% chance of ovarian cancer because my deletion is in the early onset area of the gene. And I just kind of sat numb, and she just said, "You understand what I'm telling you, right? It's not an if, it's a when. So you need to do something about it." So I immediately went and had a hysterectomy about 6 weeks after getting my results. And when I got my results from my hysterectomy, I had found out that I had had endometriosis, that it was encapsulating my ovaries and my fallopian tubes. And the oncologist said I probably would have been there within a year with ovarian cancer. I had no idea. I was faithful about going to all my doctor's appointments, and surprise, it snuck up. And then 4 months later, I had a botched mastectomy with implants. And luckily, in January of 2020, I went and saw Dr. Trahan at the Center for Restorative Breast Surgery in New Orleans, and he began my restoration. I've had 3 surgeries in 2020, and I finally I feel whole again. Few little things that we're gonna, adjust a little bit, but I feel whole again. And a lot of that has to do with groups like BRCA Strong that Tracy has started, and some of the other support groups that are out there. So I look forward to meeting everybody and joining more of these Zoom calls, because they're really what keeps so many women going.
Well, thank you so much, Maggie. It was a pleasure having you on the other night and back tonight, and we look forward to having you on more calls. Jamie?
Hey, I'm Jamie in Northern California. I'm a BRCA1 previvor, got my diagnosis about 6 weeks ago, and I'm planning for surgeries this year. I'm 41, ready to get all those things taken out. Just waiting on COVID to be able to set some dates and doing all my research, and here to support and get support with you guys.
Perfect. Thank you for joining. Kathy?
We don't hear you.
Hold on, we can't hear you.
Am I there?
There you go. Yeah.
Okay. I said this is a come as you are party this morning, right? No makeup. I am a 21-year survivor of breast cancer. I was first diagnosed with invasive ductal cell carcinoma with mets to the lymph nodes. I had quite a few lymph nodes that were positive. And then I also had papillary carcinoma with invasion at the same time, 2 different kinds of breast cancer going on. And I had been told for a long time, because my sister was I was 42, my sister was 32 when she was diagnosed, and they had been telling us to have genetic testing. For 10 years, they told us to have genetic testing, and we didn't do it. And then our mom was about to die from cancer, and we decided to have genetic testing and found out we were BRCA1 positive. So at that point, decided to go ahead and have, I had had a lumpectomy and decided to go ahead and have a double mastectomy, and because of the high risk of cancer occurring again, and to go ahead and also have a full hysterectomy. And when they did that, they found that I already had fallopian tube and ovarian cancer. So the genetic testing saved my life. And then, so I'm a huge proponent of genetic testing. And my cancer was kind of unusual because I was ER negative, PR positive, and HER2 negative, which is not really a true thing. So I don't really know. I probably am triple negative. They probably had bad tests, but don't know that for sure. But anyway, that's my story. And I do have a foundation that I founded a little over a year ago called My Faulty Gene, where we help people who need genetic testing. They need help with insurance to get approved for genetic testing, or if they don't have funds for genetic testing, we help get them linked up to get the testing done.
Perfect, Kathy. Thank you. Monica?
So hi, everyone. I am probably your newest member. I got diagnosed in October with inductal carcinoma. I am stage 2. I had what they call a central lumpectomy, which is a partial mastectomy. My cancer was actually in the nipple. I am a proponent of self-testing, and even when they tell you everything's okay, to if you have I guess if you have a feeling that something's not right, you have to be your own proponent. My mammogram came back just negative. Everything was perfect. The ultrasound came back normal, and my MRI came back with an area of enhancement. So had I not gone through and followed up and insisted on getting it checked out, and I actually did go to several doctors. They checked me out. They couldn't feel anything. Everything was normal. They told me to come back in 3 months, which would have in 6 months, which would have been in March of this year. But I went home. I insisted on finding this thing because I knew in my heart that I had something. And I did. I found it. And I went back to the doctors and showed them how to find it. And they found it and immediately had surgery. And once I had the surgery, they confirmed my biggest fear. I did do the genetic testing before I had my surgery, just to make sure I was doing the right surgery for me. And thank God it came back negative. I was very scared, not for myself, but because I do have a daughter. I did not want her to have that gene, but we will get her checked out when she's an adult, and we'll have her, continue on following self mammograms and self-checking and all that. So if, like I said, my biggest thing here is be a proponent for yourself and don't take no for an answer. And when you have a feeling something's wrong, just keep at it. Because if not, 6 months later, right now, I wouldn't even have gone for my next checkup. And the cancer probably would have been growing and spreading. So that's my story. Thank you for letting me be part of this wonderful group. I'm learning a lot from you all.
Perfect. Thank you for joining, Monica. Sarah?
Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
I am coming to you from Northern California also. I live just east of San Francisco. And my story sounds very similar to a lot of you ladies. I was 48 when I was diagnosed, probably in the best shape of my life, in the gym 5 days a week. Busy family. We have 6 kids, so very busy life. Went in for a routine mammogram. They had been watching something on my left breast for a few years. And so it was kind of a routine, do the mammogram, then 6 months later we would do ultrasound. And that day just went from great to worse to worse to worse. And it was actually on my right breast. So I kind of had a feeling when I went in for the ultrasound that something was going to be off, and I was certainly correct. So I was told to go and get a biopsy, which I did a few weeks later. And 2 days after that biopsy, I got a phone call from my doctor at work telling me that I had breast cancer. So I was diagnosed with ductal carcinoma in situ. I was in to see the breast surgeon. I was told on a Thursday I was in to see the breast surgeon that Monday. And we decided that for me, double mastectomy was probably the best shot to not hopefully have to deal with this again. So that was the path I chose. And I had my double mastectomy the end of February last year, and then my reconstruction surgery in October. After we finished, after in between that double mastectomy and the reconstruction, I did do genetic testing. And it was interesting because I have no history of breast cancer in my family at all. But I did come back positive for a gene under the BRCA panel called an ATM gene. And so that's probably the reason why this cancer grew. They did find it in my milk ducts, which was pretty amazing to me. I had no idea cancer could even grow in a place like that. So luckily, I didn't have to do any chemo because my lymph nodes were clear. But I am here today, getting used to my new body parts and trying to make healthy choices every day just to live a meaningful life moving forward.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
And sharing your story, and just know that you're not alone and we're all here to support you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Dr. Alexia, I'm going to skip over you for a second, okay? Joy, good morning. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. Great to see you again. If you just want to take a minute and just introduce yourself, as we're all getting just to know each other before we get started.
Great. Hi, Tracy. Hi, everyone. I'm in Athens, Georgia. And I've added another reason to participate in BRCA Strong events, and that is I really need to learn about the very different kinds of genetic predispositions people have for this, and also to learn about different cancers in the breast. And that's not something that I ever really came in contact with. I have had a very bumpy ride when precancer was found in a breast reduction, and 9 surgeries later, here I am with rebuilt, beautiful, autologous, all my tissue breasts and Vinnie Myers tattoos, so that I look kind of perfect if you take away the COVID weight. But I really feel strongly about the fact that 7 out of 10 women are never informed of their reconstruction options at the time of mastectomy. And it tanked me, y'all. It did. And it was Vinnie Myers who told me that. And I just broke down right there in front of him. And he's like, well, we're not doing this tattooing today. So seeing him again last October was an amazing full circle thing. I've been involved in the Facebook group for the center down in New Orleans since I think a couple months before my first surgery. So that was my first experience at realizing how wonderful and valuable, life-saving even, the groups can be. And when people want to badmouth Facebook for a second and you hear it, my dearest friends do it, I turn around and I say, what about this? Oh yeah. And I'm like, see, that's Facebook too. And I've had the wonderful pleasure of being able to meet some people from the groups face to face, and that's an even bigger joy. I found my mentors there, and I always have to make sure that I remember and remind other people that we can't take all of our information. I see the good doctors on here. Yes, right? We cannot take direction and directives and hardcore medical advice from each other. It's a good place to start. So I'll just say that that's something that I've told several people online in as loving a way as possible. So it's wonderful that we have a wonderful doctor here who can really guide and keep us in the bowling alley lane. She could be the bumpers on the side of the lane so we can hit that strike at the end of the journey. And as someone who thought the journey was going to end in October of 2019 and 18, and then have it actually kind of end, because it keeps on going, as you help people. 2 years later, it's always going to be a bumpy road. So if you're starting out, the biggest advice I can give you is, obviously do your homework, listen to the experts, ask people who've been through it, doctor shop basically, and call me, email me if you have any questions. And if I can't help, I'll find someone who will. I'm also the kind of resident expert of finding money. Make sense? If you're like, oh gosh, I have to go through insurance. Oh no, this place doesn't take it. Or, I also didn't have a caregiver. So Dr. Trayan says when I cry and say, do I have what it takes to keep going and talk to anybody about this? He said, yeah, work on the PTSD, which I didn't even know I had. And he said, then yes. And I said, well, what makes me different? He said, you're crazy passionate about this. And I said, oh, I am not stupid. And I didn't know that you could even use your own tissue. I got ushered and betrayed by people I trusted right into implants. So I know enough to know that I can help, and not enough to know what all of y'all probably know. And in the middle of all of that, the PTSD showed that the mental health diagnosis, including the medication that I was taking for like 15 years up to this point, isn't needed. So I'm here because the self-healing and the taking care of yourself is such a real thing. I mean, like, did you ever think you need to take care of your backs as you're going through surgeries? Your backs get ignored, and that's where a lot of lymphatic fluid builds up. So I've rambled, but I hope I said everything I wanted to say for the day. So I love y'all, and I'm glad it's a small group, actually.
Thank you so much, Joy. I appreciate it. And it's always great to see you. Mary, are you there to take a second to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, I'm here. Ooh, sorry. Good morning, everybody. My name is Mary. I live in Homestead, which is not too far from Miami, Florida. I met Tracy through another group on Facebook that it's called Link of Hope Sisters, and I met Tracy through there. And the link in them, it's awesome. 2 years ago this week, I was diagnosed with the CIS. And like Miss Sarah, I had never, ever heard of cancer in your milk ducts, which is what I had. Was stage 0, so I didn't have to do chemo or anything like that. I'm not a BRCA positive, but I give my 150% to Tracy because I see everything that this group does for everybody, not just for breast cancer, but for any cancer. And I've learned so much, not only for me, but my dad is a lymphoma patient. And all these things that we hear regarding cancer helps me and him and even my family members that hopefully never will have to get diagnosed. It's tough, but I always say that it's a tough road up, but there's something that you have to see on top of that mountain that pull you up. Again, like these things, I always like talk to my husband at home, like the PTSD is always there. Especially when you look at yourself in the mirror, or like when you want to wear something different, or you feel kind of blue a certain day. And these groups help me get better, even though it was 2 years ago, little by little. And it, I tell Tracy, because I help her with the masks that she does, and I tell her that doing those masks at home, it's the cheapest therapy for me. I keep busy doing crafting and doing stuff at home, and that keeps me busy to not think so much about what happened to me just 2 years ago. I don't want to see myself as a victim of cancer, but a survivor, even though it's tough. So I thank you guys for joining. I've seen a lot of faces today, and unfortunately, it's not a good thing. But I tell Tracy every day, the only good thing that cancer has given me is that I've met so many people. So thank you for hearing my craziness, and I hope I can learn a lot from you guys as well.
Thank you, Mary. I'll see you on Monday.
Yes, yes, I'm
I
ready.
haven't seen any of my girls. I'm like, I get to see her on Monday. Let's see. Jackie, if you'd like to do a short introduction.
Hi. Hi.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. If you don't mind, just to take a second and just do a short introduction of who you are.
Sure. My name is Jackie. I found out about a year and a half ago that I'm BRCA1 positive. November of 2019, I underwent a total hysterectomy, and I'm in the process of scheduling my mastectomy.
Well, welcome. Thank you for joining. And if there's anything you need from us, just let us know. We'd love to be able to help you.
Thank you so much.
So what I'm going to do is, I believe everybody went. I'm going to introduce I'm going to start off actually introducing Dr. Alexia Gaffney, who's on our call, who's our medical director. If you don't mind, Dr. Alexia, just to go ahead and do a short introduction and
Sure.
with our speaker.
All right. Thank you so much. And I'm so happy to be in this space with you all. I'm Dr. Alexia. I am a triple board certified infectious disease physician. I am a mom and speaker and author and a cancer wellness coach. And I am a breast cancer survivor thriver. I was diagnosed with stage 3 invasive lobular on the right, stage 1 on the left. I share so many pieces of you all's story. I didn't have family history, was doing self-breast exams, found lumps. My lumps told my doctors that I was high risk for breast cancer, fought for a prophylactic bilateral mastectomy and was denied one, fought for genetic testing and was denied that too. And then when I was diagnosed with cancer in both my breasts at 37, which was missed on mammogram and ultrasound found by MRI, then it was, you're too young to have cancer, something is wrong, you need genetic testing. So I am a PALB2 mutant, which is very similar to a BRCA2 mutation. And I have an ATM gene variant, which I learned that in Black people, when there are quote unquote variants of undetermined clinical significance, probably in us, they are clinically significant because we're being compared to white genes, right? So, you know, we're not that genetically distinct, but when it comes to cancer, there probably are some significant differences that haven't been sorted out yet. So I just lend my voice, my story, and my expertise to the cancer community and now to BRCA Strong, because for as much as we're all out here trying to help each other, as was stated, and there are some wonderful resources and wonderful community in these internet streets, there's also a lot of misinformation and disinformation. And so when I was diagnosed, I noticed a lack of representation, and I noticed a lot of misinformation and disinformation. And that's what led me to share and continue to share, because, you know, cancer is a lifelong diagnosis, and just to advocate and arm women with the information that they need so that they can go back to doctors, like you said, and say, listen, I need this MRI. We're not done because my mammogram and ultrasound were negative. So thank you so much. So happy to be in the space with you all this morning.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Alexia. So good morning. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tracy, the founder of BRCA Strong, where we educate, inspire, advocate, and support survivors of thrivers, whether you carry a genetic mutation or not, to eliminate the feeling of isolation and help you feel whole again. We do that by funding post-mastectomy garments, lymphedema sleeves, and pillows. We are in the process of relaunching. Next Thursday will be our relaunch date. It has been pushed 2 days, so we look forward to you looking out for our new site, knowing all your breast reconstruction options, genetic testing information, and our new program we will be rolling out for 2021. Jamie, make sure you look forward to it, because there'll be some amazing opportunities for you. So again, next Thursday is our launch. And today I'm super excited, as 2020 was not an easy year for everybody. A lot of us have gone into isolation and just forgot that it's okay to not be okay, or how to say no, or self-love, or help yourself feel through the process. And I've been lucky enough over the last year to develop a relationship with Dr. Luciette, who's based in Miami, Florida, as a psychologist. And I'll obviously let her give you more of that information. But to have this interactive workshop in a safe place for women to come together and learn. I know for me, personally, I hate asking for help. I don't admit that I need it. We all struggle with little things, or when we have bad days, it's okay to not be okay. We need to learn these things and learn how to handle positive affirmations and what we can do to make a difference within ourselves. Because really, if we have kids, or if we have families, or we're home and we're struggling, we don't have anybody to lean on. What are things that can help us provide and move through this time? So thank you again, Dr. Luciette, for coming on. We're super grateful and excited for this program, and really appreciate you putting it together, as I know you're a mom, you have kids, you work, you see patients. So we're very grateful that you set aside 2 Saturdays for an hour each to continue our education in our community. So thank you again.
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. I'm a huge fan of Break Strong. I'm really happy to be here. I love the mission, and just very briefly, because I want to make sure that we talk about the important stuff here. But yes, I'm a mom. I'm a psychologist. I'm you're originally from France, where I trained also as a psychologist. But since day one, since high school, I knew I wanted to work with women and men as well, but just anyone impacted by cancer. There's a family history of ovarian cancer and prostate cancer, so I really feel that it can be a very lonely experience, and I never wanted for anyone to have to do this alone. Not only patients, but also their family members. So that's kind of my mission as a psychologist, and I'll leave it at that. But I want to talk about self-care today, and it's something that, and I'll share a PowerPoint in a second. I'll do it right now. Actually, let me remember. I'll share a screen. Okay. So self-care is something that we hear about a lot. It's everywhere. Here, let me see. Okay. But I want to, and I'm going to rush through some of this. I want to, for this to be somewhat interactive, so I might ask you to write some things in the chat. But if everyone could take a piece of paper, a notebook, or, a sticky note, it doesn't matter. It's something where you can write some ideas. I want this, half hour to be about reflection, and for you to get started on some goals maybe that you have for 2021 as far as self-care. And but think about giving you bite-sized idea of what self-care can look like, but also things that we don't necessarily think about when we think about self-care. I'm not talking about the luxurious spa day and all of that. I mean, that can be self-care, but it's a lot more than that. So that's kind of the purpose for this. Before we do that, I'm going to ask you to kind of, take your little piece of paper and write something that you are proud of for doing, something that you feel you accomplished over the past week or few weeks. It can be big or small, but something that makes you feel good about yourself. So I'll give you just a few seconds to think about something, write it down. And the reason why I do that, and I do that with every single of my client, is that the human brain is kind of wired to think about the negative and all the things that we don't do. Our to-do list that's a mile long, and we tend not to focus on the positive. And that's kind of, it's from an evolutionary standpoint, it makes sense. We need to focus on potential threats and all, but I don't think we give ourselves enough credit for all the things that we do, and a lot of things we take for granted, such as, having food on the table for our kids, and remembering birthday parties of their friends, and kind of remembering birthdays of our loved ones, and all kinds of little things. So give yourself a pat on the back and give yourself credit for doing the things. Yeah, I think it's important. So that's kind of my first thing here. But let me. Oh, okay. So that's something that I had posted a little while ago. And it struck me because I was going to bed and my battery was completely dead, and I plugged it in. And then I realized that I was also like completely just tired and burned out. And I realized, oh, maybe I'm taking better care of my phone than I do myself. So it's something that I think we're all guilty of at times, that we push ourselves, we commit to a million different things. We put, too much on our plate. And so that can be kind of a wake-up call sometimes. So yeah, just a little humoristic note here. And so kind of wanted to do a little self-care check-in. And you can also write this on your little notebook or a piece of paper, and kind of ask yourself, what did you do for self-care this week? And maybe when did you do it? What prompted you to remember to do something that would be considered self-care? And then maybe write down a few things that you consider to be self-care, that you've wanted to do for a very long time, or maybe that you used to do before, but that kind of maybe you're not doing as much. And if you want, feel free to share in the chat box as well, and kind of, some stuff that you've done or that you want to do. And let me know also if I'm kind of rushing through this, but yeah. And
You
I'll
want to see the first question in the chat box also?
Sorry, say that again. Well, if you want to kind of share with others, what you've done for self-care, that's great as well. And I'll take a look at the chat box every few slides. All right, and I kind of wanted to emphasize that about self-care, that we always have that idea that it's, again, we think about the luxurious spa and, kind of pampering ourselves, which is very much part of self-care. But essentially, I don't know why I skipped a slide, but self-care means to take care of our needs, whether it's psychological needs, our physical needs, our health, taking care of our spiritual needs and social needs. So really taking care of ourselves as a whole. And I think that sometimes that tends to be skipped when we talk about self-care. And it's something that energizes you or bring you closer to your goals and kind of your longer term goals and your values. That being said, self-care is not always relaxing or glamorous or enjoyable in a sense. I'm thinking a lot about kind of our health. So going to your doctor's appointment and making that a priority and staying on top of your medication and, prioritizing your health and rest and recovery, let's say after you come out of surgery, that is not glamorous, right? But it is self-care and it is important. It kind of, it sends the message that you value yourself, that you're important and that you matter. So this is something that is very important as well. And your needs, they're ever changing, from one day to the next, depending on what season of life you're in. If you're going through surgery, your needs are going to be changing. If you're recovering from surgery, your needs are going to be changing. Or if you're going through chemo, maybe your needs are going to be much more about resting and getting help and asking for help, which can be pretty challenging, but they're ever changing. And so your self-care is going to be changing from, one season of your life to the next. I'm trying to think about something. And especially as moms and as women in general, there's a tendency to put ourselves last. And self-care is the thing that kind of, is put on the back burner. So I think, being intentional with it and having to be reminded of it oftentimes is important. And I like to use the metaphor of, the oxygen mask on the plane, where you cannot be a good friend or partner or caregiver or mom or employee, colleague, boss, whatever the case might be. You cannot function as well if you're not kind of, recharging your own batteries first. So, it can feel selfish, or, I hear a lot of mom guilt, and I feel that myself when you're like, oh, I'm going for a walk and I'm not spending time with my kids right now, but maybe that's what we need to be able to function better and be more present. So I think sometimes what we need can feel, again, I'll go for a walk and I feel guilty that I'm not spending time with my kids, or I'll just say no to an event and I'll feel guilty. But yet, just because you feel guilty doesn't mean that it's something you shouldn't have done, if that makes sense. Let me take a look at the chat box if I don't know. Oh, here it is. I just want to take a look at this. Yes, coming to this meeting, carving out time for yourself is very important. Watching TV, doing something that's a little bit more mindless. Not working on checking social media. I'll talk about that in a minute as well. Sometimes self-care looks like chores. You're right. Meal prep, exercising, it's not always pleasant in the moment, but again, it gets you one step closer to your goals and to a better you, I would say. Essential oil, something relaxing. Yep. Doing the dishes. And it feels good to kind of come back to a clean space. Going for a walk. I love all those things. Yep. All right. So, and something I wanted to say is that self-care is intentional. Just saying, oh, I slept last night, it's not really self-care. I mean, it is part of it, but it's more than that. It's kind of making a plan to do something that you need. And, maybe, I'm going to prioritize my sleep and my rest. I'm going to go to bed earlier. And it is personal. So I'm all about making it work for you. It doesn't matter that I tell you, meditation is great, mindfulness, everyone should do mindfulness, or yoga is the new thing. Whatever form of yoga is advertised on social medias these days, or journaling. It doesn't really matter. I mean, there really isn't one thing, one like activity or that's good or bad inherently. The question I want to ask yourself is it helpful to you, or is it kind of harming you in a way? Yes, yoga is great for your body, for your mind, but if it makes you more stressed out because you don't really enjoy it, you're not flexible, and it's just like, oh, I don't like anything about yoga, it doesn't matter. That's fine. You can just pick something else that kind of meets your needs for your, kind of physical health and mental health. So yeah, I think that's an important thing. And I've tried yoga so many times hoping to like it. Nope, I don't really enjoy it. And that's okay. And self-care isn't a reward. It is not something that you do because you've accomplished all the items and you crossed off all the items on your to-do list. Like, yay, I've done a million things today, I get to take a bath. Yes, you do. And I think you should reward yourself, but it's also a little bit more proactive than that. It's self-care is something, hopefully, ideally that we do to prevent burnout and overwhelm, and to meet your needs before you're completely out of commission. And I cannot emphasize that enough. It's not something that you do only when you're in a crisis. You need self-care all the time. You just need to meet your needs all the time. Any questions so far, or comments or anything? I want to make sure that I'm slowing down a bit and let me take a look back at the chat. And my Zoom is a little wonky, like I don't see, oh, here it is. Yeah, 8 degrees. Yeah, it's pretty cold. We're pretty lucky in Miami to be able to walk all year round. Yeah, I'm all about planning and having a kind of a journal or something where you can keep track of things. Yeah. And also a notebook hoarders. I love buying cute notebooks where I can make lists and do things. I start notebooks every, all the time, but it doesn't matter. Again, whatever kind of fills your cup is what's important. All right, let me take a quick look here. Yeah.
I agree with you, Maggie. Sometimes we are the only ones who hold ourselves back and we don't realize,
yeah,
we hold.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I agree 100%. I think it's part of it is kind of cultural, that there's the super mom thing where you have to do everything for everyone, or, it doesn't not only apply to moms, but I think women in general, and even for men as well, that they have to be the providers and that maybe their emotional needs are not tended to as much. So yeah, it can take a while to realize what we need, and not only to realize, but then the next step is to actually give yourself what you need, can be another challenging thing, for sure.
I felt guilty. Every time I would take time to myself, I felt guilty for it.
Yep.
Even though I shouldn't have. My husband would always tell me, why don't you go and have coffee with some of your friends, or, well, no, I have to do the dishes, or it'll be here when you come back, or we'll do it while you're gone, but it was me. So yeah, getting to that point and realizing that you deserve it. And now I do it a little too much, but
it's so
my kids are older though too.
Yeah, like that we feel guilty even though others might give us permission, or like they just push us to do this. And I say, yes, feel guilty and do it anyway, right? Because again, I think it's hard to get rid of the emotions. It's hard to get rid of anxiety or guilt or whatever emotion might come up. But I think it's important to do the things that matter regardless of that guilt, if you know that, you know, it's something that's needed. So yeah, more power to you for doing the things and, you know, kind of getting to that point where you feel okay and that you feel that, yeah, I deserve that. Yeah. Thanks for sharing.
Jamie, I could definitely relate to you. Just moving, you know, keeping yourself busy and productive. And if not, we do scroll on social media and see that it's not helpful. And then in the long run, we end up kind of hurting ourselves versus helping ourselves. You know, you guys might laugh, but recently I just started. So I have an 8-year-old boy and he has the Nintendo Switch. And do you guys remember the old school Mario Brothers? I know everybody has to remember it. I started playing on his Switch instead of going on social media.
Good. Yeah.
I have to tell you, it's very, you know, you clear your mind. You're not thinking of like, when am I going to go on social media? What am I going to see? Right. Because now it's before we looked forward to going on with our friends. And unfortunately, it goes to now where you go on and all you see is breast pictures, like because of the women that you become friends with. Like Dr. Alexia and I just had this conversation, like why we turn to social media all the time, but in our are going through the stuff that we're going through, we don't want to see all that junk on social media. It's so hard to balance. So if you have kids or if you like old school Mario Brothers, everybody try this Switch.
Yes, doing something kind of unusual and that will kind of make you laugh, or using humor as well. I like that. So I just put some pictures of what self-care can look like, but the reality is that, you know, self-care can look like a million different things. That there is no, it's just whatever kind of refills your cup, right? And here, so what I wanted to emphasize with this is that sometimes, I mean, we have a lot of high expectations, and we know that kind of meal planning is great for your health, and, you know, being more active and all that. So that is self-care, right? But if it feels like you're just keep adding stuff to your list, it can feel very draining and overwhelming. So sometimes I say maybe it's cooking less, or having breakfast for dinner, making it easy, or ordering groceries, going to bed early, not responding to text messages or phone calls, just, you know, saying no to something, to an event, a birthday party that, even though it might be fun, maybe you have too much on your plate and you cannot go. So again, sometimes self-care is about taking a step back, just sitting in silence, or kind of letting the emotion, kind of noticing the emotions and not doing more, if that makes sense. So, and that comes with prioritizing as well. You know, I have 10 fun and possibly good stuff that I could do, but maybe I can only do 5. So I need to pick what I have the energy to do. Doing less, saying no. I think saying no can be a hard one. But I want to take you to the next slide, because I think I had read that on a blog of a cancer survivor. She had lymphoma. She was a mom, and she was talking about starting an F-it list. And I think she had seen it in one of Jerry Seinfeld show. He was saying, like, made a bucket list. Then maybe an F. And I just love that idea. And I actually did that this year. And, you know, kind of, and, you know, I would encourage you to also go back to your little notebook and write some things that you're kind of committing to not doing anymore. And those may be things that you used to do because they were fun in one season of your life, but right now it feels more draining. You know, I told my husband last year, I'm not doing Christmas cards anymore. I mean, I enjoy that, but like, it's too much right now, and it's just like draining. So things that you're like, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to, you know, pair up the socks in the laundry. The kids are just going to try and find them, or they'll have unmatched socks. So things that, again, it feels good and it feels empowering to be like, okay, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm making it clear, letting everyone know, and that feels good. So yeah, if you can, you know, think about just one thing that you can take off from your to-do list that feels good. Let me take a look at the chat. My Zoom is really wonky. I don't know why I can't see the chat right now, but so this is something I want to go over it briefly because I don't think we have much time, but that's kind of one way to decide if, like, where something fits on your to-do list. You know, I think kind of writing down everything that you need to do, and then kind of decided if it's urgent, if it's not urgent, if it's important or not, and then using that as a way to kind of decide what to do with that item. You know, if it's urgent and important, that's something you're going to do. Maybe that's something that you can table for, you know, the summer, that you can table for later if it's important but very non-urgent. If it's not important but urgent, maybe you can delegate. You know, if folding the laundry or you know, going to the grocery store, maybe you can ask a family member or someone to help with that. And then I just love, and I think that's where the focus should be as well, that delete box. Everything that's non-urgent and really is pretty not important to you, maybe that's something you can just drop. So just letting that sit for a second. And let me chat box come back. It's, I don't know. Oh, here it is. Let me take a look. Okay. Yeah, dogs and, you know, pets in general, they can sense when something is a little off, and kind of snuggling a pet is one of the, it's just great self-care as well. Bye, Dr. Alexa. So that's something I also wanted to bring your attention to is, you know, especially I think that applies even more so when you're stressed and when you feel overwhelmed. Let's say you're, you know, again, we'll take the example of going through surgery, or hey, going through a pandemic and adding on top life. Just remember to be basic, you know. Don't, I think, you know, when you're going through stress, it's not a time to start a big project on the house or to just add more to your to-do list, but to just go back to the basic. And sleep, especially, I like to highlight sleep because it's usually the first thing to go out the window, to make sure that you are getting enough sleep, to kind of go to bed 1 hour earlier, or you know, kind of hit snooze a little bit more than usual, making sure that you're drinking water, that you're eating. You'd be kind of amazed by the number of, you know, moms and people who tell me, well, I skipped lunch or I skipped breakfast and I didn't even realize because I had so much on my plate. So really going back to the basics, and that's kind of the foundation of your self-care and of your health in general, taking care of those things. And, you know, once you have kind of that basic foundation, there's on top of that, there's a sense of safety, whether it's kind of, you know, physical safety, but also emotional safety, having someone that you can talk to, a social support network, healthy relationships, and then kind of self-esteem and kind of self-actualization, kind of more existential stuff. But I think, again, the basics are worth going back to. So yeah, I think, again, kind of thinking about doing a self-care check-in, it's always important to ask yourself, and maybe you can do that now. How am I doing with remembering to eat regular meals, or how am I doing with sleep? Am I noticing that I'm sleeping a little less recently, or how has the pandemic or other stresses, how have they affected my sleep? And I added this one just because I thought it was fun, but kind of, you know, similar to that hierarchy of needs, the quarantine hierarchy of needs. I thought it was a funny one. The toilet paper being there, but yeah. And I think, you know, that just highlights that I think that we need to use humor. It can be fun to use humor. It can be helpful to use humor as a coping skill, and sometimes kind of being more intentional about that, kind of going back to your favorite comedy, or talking to someone who you know will crack a joke or make you laugh, just kind of calling them or reaching out to them, but infusing a little bit more humor in your life. You know, watching videos of like funny videos on YouTube, whatever that can be. All right, and then relaxation. I'm kind of partial to it, but I think there's a lot to be said about relaxation. I think, you know, when you are going through stressful times, even just physically, we tend to tense up, and there's a lot of muscular tension that builds up. So learning ways to relax, and I'm kind of doing this because I think that's where people carry most of their stress, but kind of finding ways to practice relaxation, whether it's walking, doing some gentle stretching or yoga or exercising. Physical activity is great for you as far as kind of relaxation, but even more formal ways to relax, I'm thinking, kind of the deep breathing. It's simple, yet it can make a world of difference. Just doing some deep breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, and you can just, if you need kind of a recording to help, you can go to YouTube, but it's been shown that it helps lower blood pressure and all kinds of things. So again, going back to the breath, and I've also included 3 resources that are great for relaxation and kind of meditation. Headspace, which is an app that, it's a mindfulness app, and it's really short, little bite-sized exercises of 5 to 10 minutes. It's amazingly done, and I saw now that it's on Netflix, and they have, kind of how to fall back in love with life, how to manage stress, how to help with sleep, so all kinds of the most common stressors. So I highly recommend it. And then Insight Timer and Calm are 2 more of the apps that I usually recommend. They have some modules that you have to buy, but I'm just using the free stuff, and they have all kinds of cool exercises. And, I will say that now, because just in case I run out of time, I would encourage you to kind of schedule in your self-care or relaxation or whatever, goal you want to work towards, to make it a date with yourself in your calendar, make it a recurring event. Let's say if you want to walk more, or, have some time to read, to put that in your phone. So I tell people, grab your phone and put a reminder on your phone and make it a commitment. And make it, we are very good with scheduling in doctor's appointments and the kids stuff, but what about our own self-care? So making it a priority, and then scheduling other things around that time when you're going to be reading or watering your plants or doing some relaxation. Really, that kind of gives the message that, okay, I matter, these times matter, I need to prioritize myself. Let's see how I'm doing on time. Okay. So I'm gonna kind of skip maybe a few. So limiting media exposure, especially these days, there have been a lot of studies recently showing that social media consumption can actually increase your anxiety, especially during COVID times. So I would say to kind of limit the sources of, the limit the time that you spend on social media, but also seeking information from trusted sources. And you feel that it's too much and you're feeling anxious, just cutting it down and see if that helps. And then the last thing I want to touch on with the time that we have left is to emphasize SMART goals. And I would encourage you to maybe kind of think of a SMART goal for yourself before we wrap up today. And the example that I usually give is like, if someone comes to me and tells me, okay, my goal is to exercise and be more physically active. That's an awesome goal, right? But then they come back 2 weeks after and they're like, okay, I walked for 30 minutes in the past 2 weeks. Does that count? Does that not? It could be, right? But it's vague. So if instead the goal is, I will walk for 20 minutes on Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday after breakfast, it's a lot easier to kind of keep track of how you're doing with your goal. Or it could be, I'm going to go to bed at 9:30 p.m. at least 3 times a week. So again, you have to be to make it a lot more objective. And so SMART goal stands for SMART. So what do you want to do? Do you want to go to bed earlier? Do you want to take a nap? Measurable. So it's something, it has to include some type of number. How will you know when you've reached that goal? It could be, I'm going to be taking a 20-minute nap, or I'll go to bed at 9:30 p.m. Again, it's something that's tangible. And attainable. Is it realistic or not? If I tell you that tomorrow I'm going to start training for a marathon that I want to run in 2 months, maybe not very realistic. And relevant, I put that here because I think it has to be meaningful to you. It doesn't matter if you're, a best friend or doctor or your partner tells you you should be doing yoga or journaling because it's great for you. Well, yes, it is probably great, but if it's something that you don't really enjoy, or if it's something that is not really in line with what you're trying to accomplish, it's going to be hard to be consistent with it. And then the last piece here is something that's time-based. So when do you want to accomplish something? And some goals are kind of, they don't have a timeline. Walking, it's something that you continue doing, but if it's like, I want to clean my closet because it's giving me so much, stress to see that clutter, I want to do that before the end of, let's say, March. Okay. So I'm sorry, I'm kind of rushing through this, but maybe if you can take a few minutes to think about something that you've been doing and that you want to refine, or something that you've wanted to do as far as self-care, and see if you can make it into a SMART goal. And I'm happy to help you kind of troubleshoot if you want to share. I'm happy to walk you through an example if someone wants to share one of their goals or. Sorry. Just feel free to speak up if you have questions, because the chat box, I can see it most of the time.
Oh, here, can you see it now?
It's just that I don't know, like
Okay.
I don't see it now. I'm not sure why, but yeah. Does that make sense? I mean, I've been rushing through some of it, but any questions or?
Doctor, would it be possible to get a copy of this presentation later as a PDF that we could refer back to?
Sure.
It'll also be on our YouTube channel.
Oh, great.
Yes, I'll send a PDF to Tracy.
Perfect.
So the last piece that I wanted to, but before I move on, I kind of want to make sure that any questions about SMART goals or?
I think it's really important to set goals that are super low, like so low you can trip over them. Like if you set huge goals for a big lifestyle change, it's really easy to get discouraged. So like my goal is to just drink more water, because I feel better when I drink water over other things, tea, coffee, soda, whatever. And it might start with like, okay, I'm going to have 5 glasses of water today, which for me really isn't that unrealistic. And then if I do that well this week, I'm going to up it to 6, and then so on and so forth. So really start with something that seems super easy and attainable. And then when you get that feeling of success, it's easy to push you forward then to do more challenging things.
Absolutely. I could not agree with that more. And I tell people, just kind of set the goal at something you're already doing to build that, that feeling of like confidence, and that it feels empowering to be able to kind of keep track of that thing and be like, oh, wow, I'm already doing that. And actually like physically keep track of it on a piece of paper or on some of the apps on your phone. So yeah, absolutely.
Question? I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Joy here. SMART, what do you want to do? To me, that almost seems opposite. I know what's smart and what I need to do, but it's not what I want to do. So are you meaning SMART? What is it on the plate that I know I want to start on or something? Or what is the?
That's important what you said about something that what we want may not be what we need. So I think, I think what you're referring to here is something that's relevant. So if you feel that it's something that you're not maybe fully ready to do, or that you don't really want to do, maybe I would not start there. I would start with something that maybe you've been really wanting to do and that's kind of important to you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. But yeah, you want to build that feeling of confidence and kind of just success. So just starting with something that you really want. I really want to leave you with this last piece on self-compassion, because I think, again, it's been a very difficult year on top of life that, you know, continues to happen, and, you know, health issues do not stop because there's a pandemic. So I think it can be easy to, we talked about the guilt, but you feel like we're not doing enough. We're not doing enough for the kids, for ourselves, for our friends. And then even talking about self-care, I know that it's not uncommon to be like, okay, I should be taking better care of myself. I'm not active enough, and kind of all those things. So when I mean self-compassion, I think the easiest way to understand self-compassion is to tell yourself what you would tell your best friend. Okay, if your best friend were in, you know, the stressful situation that you're in, what would you be telling them? And we tend to be a lot more critical with ourselves and have a lot, you know, more strict and unrealistic expectations for ourselves. So if it were your best friend who was going through a difficult time, what type of words would you be giving them? And are you able to use those same words with you? So that's usually what I like to do, is kind of encourage people to write themselves a little love note, like, and a little a kind little note. And I just gave an example here, but, you know, kind of the difference between saying, I suck at being a mom right now, I should be spending more time with the kids instead of staying in bed, and turning this into, wow, this is stressful. And, you know, this was an example of maybe someone going through surgery. I'm hurting, I just went to surgery, and but I'm not alone. Others experience this just like I do. And being able to say, okay, may I be kind to myself, may I be patient with this. And this, I think the self-compassion piece deserves a whole full hour or workshop, but I think I couldn't leave without saying that may be kind of the takeaway that I would want you to have, is that, you know, to be kind to ourselves the way we would be kind to others that we care for and love. And that applies to self-care and all the great stuff that we would want to do but we're not doing, but that applies to everything else as well.
You know, one note that I'd like to say is, I don't know, for those of you that weren't on the call the other night with Ali Ray, you know, one thing that she stated was, if you can't say it to your friend, then don't say it to yourself. And I really feel like that there's a lot of power in that statement, right? And she related to it as her mom, but when we think about it, if you won't say it to some, you know, if you don't say it to yourself, why say it to someone else? So I'd like to thank Dr. Luciette again. I know you have another commitment after this, so we really appreciate your time and coming on, and we look forward to next Saturday.
And I'll send a PDF of the slides, but I also have, it's on my blog, but I have some resources as well. Like I talk about mom guilt, and I talk about kind of setting goals, and all the things that I talked about, and some grounding exercises. So that's another resource.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Luciette, for coming on and putting this workshop together with me. We really appreciate your time and dedication again.
Thank you, everyone. I hope that you have a nice rest of your weekend, and I look forward to seeing you all next week.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.